So today we are going to be preparing a banh mi sandwich, which happens to be my absolute favorite sandwich. It has this beautiful composition of bright, fresh, citrusy and cold ingredients, and then it has a nice warm meat with it, making a beautifully toasted sandwich. So one thing I do want to do is I want to get this started, and then I'll talk a little bit more about banh mi. So we're going to come over to the cutting board here. I'm going to show you the two things that we're going to make today. So this is a pickling liquid. We're going to do a quick pickle today. We're not going to do like a typical pickle that sits in a brine for a long time. We're going to do a quick pickle. So this is the vinegar, water, honey, sugar, and salt. And I'm going to get that going so we can start quick pickling our recipes. And then I'm also going to, this is going to be our soy glaze, which goes on top. You can see how liquidy and viscous it is right here. And this is our soy sauce, fish oil, honey, sugar, and red chili flakes. And we're going to reduce that down until it's a glaze. And then that's going to create a beautiful, almost teriyaki-like glaze on top of the sandwich. So I'm going to get these two going and then just talk a little bit about the history of banh mi. All right, so I think we're done with the cutting board. And so I wanted to, talk a little bit about banh mi. It's a wonderful, wonderful sandwich. It is a combo of French food and Vietnamese food. So basically what happened is when the French came to Vietnam, they brought the baguette and they brought their pâtés. And along with that, the combo of the Vietnamese style food of the fresh cucumber, the fresh cilantro, and the quick pickle of your daikon radish and carrots. So basically these two, this is a fusion. This is one of those trending things that we're seeing coming into restaurants, and this is how it started with the banh mi sandwich. So you have your baguette, and then you have your pâtés, and then you have your pork and ham, and then you have the great combo of the daikon radish, carrots, cilantro, and cucumber, and as well as the pepper on top. So if you don't know what banh mi is, let me walk you through. A traditional banh mi is going to have a baguette, and then it's going to have pâté, typically pork tenderloin. And then next you're going to get some ham. This is all going to be nice and warm on a toasted bun. And then from there, you're going to get a pickled carrot and daikon radish cut into matchstick form, and then cucumber, cilantro, and your jalapeno or serrano. So once you have all of that in your sandwich, that's your typical banh mi. And banh mi is so different. It's almost like saying, soup. You're not going to think of one different soup. There's, hundreds of different ways to make a soup. Same with the banh mi sandwich. So if you order a banh mi sandwich, it will be different everywhere. So today we're doing my take on the banh mi sandwich. So what I'm doing right now is I'm getting the quick pickling liquid, that brine. I'm bringing it up to a boil. And then once it's hot, or at least a simmer, then I'm going to pour it over the vegetables. And I'm going to make sure that they're submerged, the carrot and the daikon radish. Once I have those submerged, I'm just going to set it aside for about 10 minutes. That's really going to soften it up, but it's still going to leave it nice and crunchy. And it's going to have, a quick pickle is going to have a strong vinegar taste in the front. And then you're going to get the vegetable taste at the end, as opposed to a longer pickle where that vinegar really soaks all the way through. So I'm getting that going. And while that's going, I do want to talk about, so I have something here. This is a serrano mayo, which is, you'll see, so instead of putting a fresh pepper on top of the banh mi sandwich, I've decided to make it into a mayo as a nice even spread across the sandwich. I find that when I eat a banh mi sandwich and you have slices of jalapeno, I'll bite it, I'll get all the jalapeno or serrano out in one bite, and then I have no more spice for the rest of it. So by turning it into a mayo or a sauce that I can put across it, I'm going to get a nice even spice with every bite, which I love. Same thing with the pork. So I'm using a shredded pulled pork. Typically, this is a pork tenderloin. And with the pork tenderloin, you get these chunks that are grilled. And then when you bite it, it pulls all the meat out. So by using a shredded pulled pork, I get a nice even spacing across the entire thing. Banh mi is typically, like I said, it has the ham and it has the pork on it, and then it has your pâté. But there are multiple other ways to make this dish. You can actually make it vegetarian rather simply. And the way to do that is you can substitute out jackfruit, tempeh, or tofu. Haven't worked with jackfruit. Jackfruit is probably my favorite to use in a banh mi sandwich. So you can roast it, and it is a fruit that has the consistency of shredded pulled pork, and then you can toss it in your glaze. So you still get that shredded pulled pork feel, that mouth feel, and it almost has like a meaty taste to it, but it is vegetarian, which is phenomenal. All right. So I got the pickling liquid up to a simmer, and I'm going to pour it over my carrots and daikon radish. One thing that I want to make sure that I'm doing when I'm doing this is I want to make sure that the vegetables are fully submerged. I don't want half of it sticking out because then it won't pickle. So I have just enough liquid to make sure that it is submerged, and it's going to make the carrots bright and the daikon radish flavor come out. While that's going, I'm going to keep an eye on this glaze. So I want to talk about the glaze just a little bit. With this glaze, anytime that you boil or reduce on soy sauce, if any of you have ever made pasta and you throw your pasta in the water and boil it, you'll see the foam start coming up the side. Same thing with the glaze. So as soon as I start getting high heat on this, I want to be very, very careful and make sure that I'm stirring it as it reduces down. So I'm going to do this nice and high, and really what I'm doing here to make a glaze, so imagine you have all of your water, your liquid, your soy sauce, everything in your sauce. How do you make a thicker sauce? Well, you evaporate it. You don't want it to burn to the bottom because that will end up tasting, you'll taste that bitterness with it. But so you need to keep stirring it as you're doing this. And then to make it that glaze, you take the water out, meaning you're reducing it down to a glaze and sauce-like consistency. So this is heating up. I'm going to keep my eye on it so that as it becomes less of a liquid and turns more into a glaze, it doesn't end up boiling over and making a huge mess for me to clean up. And then with the pulled pork, like I said, I do a shredded pulled pork. So there's the recipe with this that you guys will either have access to or get at the end of this you take a pork shoulder. And the way that I do it is I roast it in the oven. I personally, I don't have a crock pot, and I've done it very traditionally for many years. So the way that we used to get those low and slow meats is to put it in the oven at a low temperature overnight or during the day while you're at work until basically the meat starts to fall off the bone. And another important factor in the recipe, you'll see, I said a bone-in pork shoulder. So having the bone in just allows for more flavor. It allows that bone to really break down and let some of that marrow out and that fat get out into the rest of the meat. When you're doing that, one thing that you want to make sure that you're doing when you pull it out, so you're going to pull it out, and then I use tongs because it's going to be very hot. As you put it into your pan, you want to make sure that you pour that liquid on top afterwards before you put it in the fridge. That's really going to have all the flavors that serrano or jalapeno, that pepper flavor that you decide on, and then that ginger is really going to come through in the liquid there. So my soy glaze is starting to get to a simmer. So I know that once I have a simmer, there's going to be those little bubbles that start popping up. And I do have it on high heat. So I know that that boil is coming. So I need to keep a very good eye on this so that I don't make a giant mess. And the last most important part while making this is to make sure that we toast the bun. So here, like I said, it's traditionally a baguette, but I have a bolito, which is it's a good cross between a baguette and any other type of bread that you'll find. So it's not a full-on baguette, but this is a perfect, beautiful size, and it's going to toast really, really well for me in the pan. So I'm going to get the pan heated up with that. Traditionally, you'll find that banh mi, they use mayo instead of butter or oil. I'm using oil today because I find that mayo tends to burn a little bit easier, but you'll spread your mayo on there and you'll toast both sides. You want that crunch on the outside and the inside. I promise we're almost at the exciting part where we get to build a sandwich. So as I'm stirring this, I can see the bubbles coming up and I can see it rising up the pot. So I have to keep my eyes on this from here on out, especially at high heat. You can do it a little bit lower and slower, but that will take a little bit more time. And you can do it fast and get it down to the reduction that you want, but you do have to pay attention to it. Same with anything when you're cooking. My favorite part about cooking is that you get to use all of your senses. So You're going to use your physical touch to feel everything. You're going to see what you're doing. You're going to taste it. And then you're able to smell it. So I know that I can be over here. I can smell this soy sauce. I can smell the soy glaze coming down, and I can hear it bubbling. So you're going to use every single sense while you're doing this. All right. So while that's going down, I'm going to toast the bun. So I have a pan that's nice and warm right now. I do want to make sure that I warm the pan up before I put it in. Otherwise the bread, it still may stick, but if you put it into a cold pan and turn it up, the bread is more likely to stick to the bottom. Once your oil is nice and hot, that'll help keep it from sticking to the bottom. All right. And that glaze is almost ready. So we're going to get a toasting on both sides of the bun here. And then we can build this beautiful banh mi sandwich. Again, which is a beautiful dish in summer and winter. During winter, you can have that nice warm meat as a comfort. And during summer, the herbs and fresh cucumber and pickled veggies really, really come through. All right. Glaze reducing down, beautiful. Back here in my last pot, I have the pulled pork heating up. Anytime you reheat something, you want to reheat it to 165 degrees. So I don't just have the pulled pork in here so that it's going to burn to the bottom. I also have some of the reserved liquid in here, which is going to increase the flavor and still keep it moist. Beautiful. All right, the glaze is almost ready. Like I said, I can see the bubbles coming up the side, but I can feel it getting thicker and thicker. This is where you're going to use every sense when you're cooking to figure out where it's at. I can smell it, so I smell that it's not burnt. I can see it and feel the thickness of the sauce.
Chef Dan?
Yes.
What kind of oil do you use for the bun?
So traditionally, we're going to use mayo. You can use a light neutral oil. So I tend to go with the canola oil. You can use a very mild olive oil. But again, traditionally, you could use butter. Butter would probably be the best because it's going to be that in between of oil and the creaminess that you're going to get from the mayo. Great question. All right. Fan on low in the background. Can everybody still hear me?
Yep.
Good. Awesome. Mm-hmm. Great. And we are going to come over to the cutting board. I'm going to show you how to build the sandwich. So what you can see here is I have a nice golden brown toasting on the bun without it being too burnt. Okay. And now we're going to layer everything together. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with this Serrano mayo, okay? So this is one Serrano, a little bit of salt and pepper, and then mayo just blended together. So this is going to create that sauce. It's going to get a nice, even texture across the way. And I do like it spicy, so I'm going to put lots of the mayo on here. You can tell that it's a little bit thinner than mayo because you're going to get the liquid from the pepper that you're using in there. So I have a nice base of the Serrano mayo, and then I'm going to do the meat. Like I said, traditionally, this could have ham, pork, and pate. Today, I'm doing a simplified version. I think it's a little bit quicker to make, and one of my favorites. I'm just going to do the pulled pork. So I have it nice and shredded here. All right, let's make sure we get all that meat on there. Beautiful. And then next, I'm going to take the pickled veggies. So you can see I have the pickled veggies in the liquid here. I'm going to strain that liquid out. All right. So now that I have just the vegetables in here, so they're a little bit tender. It's almost like they've been cooked, which is great, but they're not fully cooked. They're not mushy. So I'm going to lay, this is the daikon radish. And so daikon radish and the carrots, I cut into matchstick form. So you're going to cut it into 2-inch sections and then cut it into 1/8 inch by 1/8 inch strips. So you can lay it on the sandwich. So I have pickled veggies on it. Next, I'm going to lay some cucumbers on top. So they get a nice, crisp, even bite of cucumber across the top. And then I have some fresh cilantro. It's chopped, but it's not finely chopped. So it's a quick rough chop. It's okay to have a little bit of the thinner stems up top, but you don't want those big fibrous stems in there. And then lastly, now that I've reduced the glaze down, I'm going to take a spoon and drizzle a little bit over the top. Okay, you can see it's sticking to all the veggies in here. So as you can see with this, it's not as watery and viscous as it was before, but it's clinging to everything that you're pouring it on. So I know that I have a good glaze right here. Beautiful, holding to the sandwich, not running away. So now I have this monster of a sandwich, this banh mi sandwich. And the next step is to put the top back on, okay? And then I'm gonna cut it so that I can eat it. You'll see this typically like wrapped in a deli paper. I mean, you can eat it down from here, but for today, I wanna cut it and I'm gonna cut it on a bias and make it nice and pretty. And then we're gonna move it over to the plate so you can see this beautiful sandwich. All right. So here we have the finished sandwich. So you can see inside holding together. It is going to be a little bit messy, but the flavor is 100% worth it. So we have, this will be my take on the banh mi sandwich. Like I said, it is going to be messy. Think of it kind of like a pulled pork sandwich, but it's such a different contrast of flavors. And that's that. So that's my take on the banh mi, and hope you guys can take those recipes and make it yourself.